Ең бірінші техникасы мен
To begin with, I draw an ornament considering the entire canvas. I figure out how many meters, centimeters, or maybe an entire korpe should fit into a fragment. For example, I calculate how many quadrangles should be. I draw every figure and detail. For example, I start with this quadrilateral. There should be 3 of them. This one should be of the same size. If this patch is 30 centimeters, then these should be 10 centimeters each. We measure this fragment, it comes out 50 centimeters. So the figures should fit in these 50 centimeters. This is pure mathematics. You have to calculate every little detail. Nariman Qalqabay Qazaq has been creating patchwork quilts for the past 30 years. Her major occupation since her well-deserved retirement has been a skill she learned as a child. I enjoyed watching my mother embroider an ornament when I was in 2nd or 3rd grade, and I'd let her know if something went wrong someplace. For example, she might not have seen that she embroidered a pattern either on the wrong side of the blanket or on the front side. "Mum, look, this piece must be turned over," I said. She had a lifelong passion for art in all of its forms. My father was an artist. He was an excellent painter. I've always enjoyed watching him at work. My parents probably instilled in me an appreciation for beauty. You always want to sew, cut, embroider, or create something. The Kazakh people have a custom of giving out fabric cuttings as part of their culture. At the same time, the significance of this act varied depending on the situation. For example, during a wedding or other happy event, fabrics were handed with the wish for pleasant occasions for hosting festivities. Fabric is also distributed during the funeral of an elderly person who has lived a long, interesting life with wishes for others to have the same long life. Kazakhs traditionally sewed clothes for a child or a patchwork quilt for a girl's dowry out of this fabric.
Мысалға келтіретін болсақ, қыздың жасауындағы көрпелердің
Any Kazakh girl's dowry always included a patchwork quilt. Why? Because the patchwork quilt symbolizes the desire for family unity, solidarity, and the multiplication of all good things in life.
Мал дүние құралсын деген жақсы тілекпен орындалатын зат болып есептеледі.
Cuts of cloth are distributed at an old man's funeral in ancient times. Everyone accepts this cloth gratefully because they understand it as a token of wish for them to enjoy the same long life full of pleasant events.
Сондай тілекпен таратылатын маталар.
A person with an open mind and a sensitive heart will notice that every aspect of the patchwork quilt tells about the features of the Kazakh worldview, about the people's wisdom that has been preserved for ages. Take note of this pattern. It can be found on a felt mat, a carpet, clothing, and a bag. The trousers were also adorned with national ornaments. If there was no pattern, the headdress was considered unfinished. The ornament is a nomad's archaic letter, and the one who understands the significance of each pattern will be able to decipher the letter that has come down to us from the depth of centuries. The Kazakh ornament's semantics reflects the nomadic people's life and their attitude to the universe. For example, this was felt toskiyis, which was made for a child. This ornament is called qoshqar muyis, which means goat horns. It symbolizes wealth. Depicting it, the master wishes the boy to become a strong-willed man. This pattern symbolizes the sign of infinity. It contains the desire for a long life. This pattern is repeated everywhere. An ornament called ala qurt protects from the evil eye. As a clash between good and evil, life and death, there are always two colors. This is the reflection of life. This pattern is called sangar muyus, similar to the horns of an animal. The pattern khustumsuk is also used.
Осыдан біздің байқайтынымыз матаның медиатор.
As a result, the cloth serves a kind of mediator, an object of adoration, and a talisman. The fabric has a unique feature transferring one person's best attributes to another. It also serves as a security measure. A newborn, for example, is dressed in special garments, such as a large blouse called itkoilik, which translates as dog dress.
байланысты, яғни маталардың қиындыларынан құралатын бұйым жеті жерден жеті құрақ дейді, жеті үйден жиналған матадан.
They sew from multicolored patches collected from many homes and brought from various joyful and sorrowful events.
Заттарынан қалған қиындылардан құралатын бұйымдар.
A multicolored artwork with numerous figures perfectly integrated shimmers and draws the attention. Signs, symbols, and patterns are used to decorate any work of applied art in traditional culture. The essence is found not only in the aesthetic component, but most importantly in semantics, the reflection of a deep meaning, the expression of dreams, and sincere desires directed to the one to whom this wonderful present will be offered. As a result, the colors and shapes of each piece of fabric were chosen with care. So, for example, blue represents the sky and the god Tengri, the patron of nomads. Red represents strength, vitality, and youth. Green represents the start of a new life. White represents purity and true ideas. And yellow represents wisdom and prosperity.
Біздің қазағымыз, біздің апаларымыз, әжелеріміз мысалы
Our grandmothers knitted Kurak korpe for newlyweds who were unable to have a healthy kid due to miscarriages. In such instances, they would normally collect 40 shreds from 40 houses and make a blanket for the young ones to sleep on. It is vital to stress that mothers of large families embroidered the blanket. Even now, believe it or not, this works. I frequently visit distant villages where people tell me a child was born in their family. So 40 shreds represent the wishes of 40 houses. These pieces of fabric were given with good intentions to boost the number of children. A blanket made from 40 pieces brought joy to a young family.
астына тастаса, салса жаңа құрақтап бала көтереді екен.
On a bright canvas, the geometric shapes of the cube, hexagon, trapezium, triangle, pyramid, rhombus, rectangle, and parallelogram are brilliantly combined. When you look at such a work of art, you can see the vast scientific understanding of a nomad who studied in the Steppe Academy. According to ethnographers, each figure carries sacred meaning and extensive information. The triangle, for example, represents the Turkic people's three-dimensional space. If we wedge the pattern Qoshqarmuyus into this triangle, it will depict fire.
Мен ойлаймын осы біздің қазақ
It is usual to refer to any type of Kazakh art as folk art, but the more I practice applied art, the more I realize that science was also folk. The Kazakhs held knowledge later confirmed by scientific method since ancient times. The mathematical knowledge of the people is set at the center of patchwork quilts or embroidery. And I understand, as an educated mathematician, that without mathematical, geometric formulae, all the figures would not be stitched into a canvas. The Kazakh yurt results from a scientific understanding of the steppe, which considers both physical and mathematical laws. The time of the day was determined by the dome, shangarak, which was propped up by long poles. It appeared to be a clock face from below. In a nutshell, astronomy was understandable to a Kazakh from birth.
былайша айтқанда.
Historians claim that samples of applied art made by Kazakh women date back to ancient times. They reflect the ancient Turkic culture of the Saks, Uysuns, Kipchaks, and Huns.
Құрақ өнері тек қана текстильмен байланысты емес.
Kurak was made not just from fabric remains, but also from felt scraps. The exhibits unearthed in the Patchwork mound, for example, were created from parts of a single felt carpet. There were samples made of multicolored felt. This demonstrates that the technology was invented during the historical period BC. The word suru means quilt in Mahmud Kashgari's 9th century dictionary shows that quilting represents one of the oldest techniques.
Көне техникаларын біліп есептеледі.
Signs, symbols reflected in Kurak, korpe, are typical for the culture of the nomadic people. This is evidenced by rock carvings found in the Pavlodar region in Öskemen, Ulutau, and exhibits found as a result of archaeological excavations in the mounds of Libidivka, Qirqoba. These are geometric figures depicted on the ceramic dishes of that era. Such work requires, first of all, diligence and patience. Knowledge is also important here. If you don't understand the internal patterns, you won't be able to calculate and measure everything. Nothing will work out. You need to be able to do calculations and draw. Sometimes you sketch a small quilt, but in the end, when you start working on a large blanket, you realize that your calculations were wrong. About the mastery of the Kazakhs, the Russian scientist M.A. Levanevsky wrote, "It is impossible not to be surprised by Kazakh's talent for any work, especially to applied art. Unique products made of gold and silver delight the eye." M.A. Levanevsky. Travelers and researchers of the nomadic culture also subtly noticed that certain regions had their own signature style of applied art. For example, in Shymkent and Kızılorda, they produced felt. In Mangostau, they wove alasha and baskur. East Kazakhstan was famous for the art of embroidery. Craftswomen of the Almaty region wove wall felt mats. Almost all regions knew the art of patchwork. According to the craftsmen, only looking at the artwork could they distinguish in which region the blanket was made. Kazakhstan has a vast area. Every region has its own customs. The Kazakhs in the west differ from those of the east, and the southerners from those of the north. For example, each region collects a bride's dowry in its own unique fashion. We, the Central Kazakhs, normally weave a couple of blankets and pillows, one blanket for a guest, and we provide the necessary utensils. All dowry items must be 9 pieces in the south of Kazakhstan, 9 pillows, 9 blankets, and so on. One country and one people, but the traditions differ. We believe young people should only be given items that will be useful to them in the immediate future. The patchwork was not made for domestic use. This is no ordinary blanket. It was made especially for the exhibition. When I started to do applied arts, I wanted to make different versions of patchwork in the form of a picture to hang it on the wall. I specially ordered the materials for this blanket at the factory. You see, this is done with a laser. The strips are all different. In this case, I diversified the ancient art by updating the material, made changes to the design, and diversified the color scheme. But the manufacturing technology has remained traditional, originating from our grandmother's art. I cannot say that this is an innovation in the full sense of the word. Patchwork is an art form that can be found in many cultures. In Western countries, for example, the process of sewing using fabric scraps is known as patchwork. The first specimens of this art, according to experts, arose in England in the 11th century. Then it spread throughout Europe, America, and Australia. Due to poverty, Europeans, unlike Kazakhs, employed the patchwork technique. Patchwork designs are now considered an art form. Entire collections of this style's products are on display in museums in Sweden, Germany, and Switzerland. The process of stitching a patchwork product is known as quilting in the United States. They transformed it into true art. I personally witnessed the creation process.
Картинасыз тұла бойының энергетикасын суретке түсірген, содан кейін қолына жаңа картинаны берген квилтпен, сол бір ары кетсе бір 10-15 минутта.
They begin by drawing a picture of multicolored shreds. A person is then photographed. They then place a picture in his hand and photograph him again after he has been coated with bright colors. There are two versions of the same individual. The main line is that shreds remove all negativity, evil eye, sicknesses, and anything else that is harmful to the human body. He seemed to have been reborn.
Ауру сырқау дерттің барлығын құрақ суырып алады дейді.
Құрақ өнері әрине ол тек қана қалған маталардың қиындыларынан.
The goal of the patchwork quilting technique was not to save money. This is a distinct branch of traditional culture that represents the people's philosophy, customs, and world views.
Философиясымен, әдет, ғұрыпмен, салтымен тікелей байланысты.
Kurak is an educational art form in which women learn to treat everything with care, in addition to learning patience and perseverance. Kurak, according to popular belief, cures the evil eye. A mother, for example, whose children did not survive at birth, wrapped her newborn in a multicolored blanket. The person's eyes suddenly shifted away from the child and toward the colorful canvas.
Жалпы, құрақтың керемет қасиеті, біз енді әдемі дейміз.
We can lie down and relax safely on Kurak korpe. I often wonder why Kurak is still used nowadays. All other yurt ornaments utilized in ancient times are no longer in demand. However, Kurak remains relevant. So what's the secret? I suppose it has something to do with genetic memory. We recall the particular features of Kurak korpe subconsciously at the genetic level. As a result, there is a strong desire to sit or lie down on a lovely blanket. We are missing them. We intend to purchase and cover the house. It feels as if it cleanses our home and body of evil entities. That is why Kurak korpe is still in high demand today.
Қасиет алып келді біздің шаңыраққа, соны оқылым заманнан бері құрақ көрпе.
In modern society, interest in applied art has increased significantly, experts say. According to Rza Tursunzada, some women even quit their main jobs, learn needlework, and open their own companies. Kurak has become so popular that jackets, skirts, and frock coats with multicolored inserts from diverse materials such as chintz, coarse calico, and satin have become fashionable. It has a trendy appearance and is comfy to wear.
Сондықтан бүгінгі күні сол дәстүр жалғасын тауып,
Many designers and craftspeople are still using Kurak technology in their work today. At the same time, this design is consistent with a modern person's vision of life.
сонымен қатар құрақ бұл жалпы өмір сүру философиясымен де байланысты. Яғни
Kurak best expresses the image of integrity in a global environment where borders are removed and we live in a single space. The technique now represents unity in diversity.
бейненің қалыптасу. Яғни бұл біздің әлем туралы түсінігімізді көрсетеді.
Thus, Kurak is a sacred art rooted in the ancient era. Originally Kazakh tradition, inspiring talented youth to create new images. It is also a national brand that represents the philosophy of the nomad to the whole world.